Wasee and Nano had been inseparable for as long as they could remember. Their friendship wasn't just built on shared childhood memories but on an unspoken promise to stand by each other through thick and thin. They had spent countless afternoons in the narrow streets of their town, laughing at the silliest jokes, planning futures that seemed limitless, and confiding secrets they wouldn't share with anyone else. Nano, the more adventurous of the two, always led the way, dragging Wasee into mischief with a daring grin. Wasee, calm and calculated, often found himself playing the voice of reason, yet he never hesitated to follow where Nano led. Together they were a force, two halves of a whole bound by loyalty. But beneath this unwavering bond, a shadow loomed Lily. Nano's uncle, a man of quiet charm yet sharp words, had always been a presence in their lives. He carried himself with the air of wisdom, the kind that made his words seem undeniable. While he never openly discouraged their friendship, there was something about the way he spoke of Wasee that left a lingering doubt in Nano's mind. "You trust Wasee too much," Lily remarked one evening, as he sat on the worn-out wooden chair in Nano's home. "Friends are like the wind, always shifting, never still. Don't be foolish enough to think loyalty lasts forever." Nano had laughed then, brushing off the comment as idle talk. But once a seed of doubt is planted, it finds ways to grow. On the other side of town, Lily's words weren't confined to Nano alone. When he met Wasee, he wove a different tale. "Nano is changing," he'd say, his voice low and knowing. "Not everyone values friendship the way you do. You should be careful who you trust." First, Wasee dismissed it. He and Nano had been through too much for words alone to shake their foundation. But over time, he began to notice things, small, almost imperceptible shifts. The way Nano hesitated before sharing something personal. The way he sometimes looked away when Wasee spoke, as if second-guessing his words. The changes were subtle, but they were there. Neither Wasee nor Nano spoke of it, but a silence had begun to settle between them. It wasn't the comfortable quiet of old. It was something else, something unsettling. Had their friendship changed? Or had they simply begun to see each other differently? As the sun set over the town, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, an unspoken question hung between them, one neither was ready to answer. Little did they know, the cracks had already begun to form, and soon they would be impossible to ignore. The change was gradual, almost imperceptible at first, like a slow-moving tide pulling away from the shore. Wasee and Nano still met, still spoke, still carried the echoes of their once unbreakable bond, but something had shifted. The laughter didn't come as easily. The trust that had once been second nature now felt fragile, something that needed effort to maintain. Lily's words, like well-placed thorns, had embedded themselves deep into their minds. Nano found himself hesitating before confiding in Wasee. Was he truly a friend, or had Lily been right all along? It was a question he had never needed to ask before. He had always believed that Wasee would stand by him no matter what. But now, uncertainty gnawed at the edges of that belief. A careless remark from Wasee, something that would have once been dismissed with a shrug, now felt like a hidden jab. A missed meeting, once insignificant, now seemed intentional. On the other side, Wasee wasn't blind to the shift in Nano's demeanor. He sensed the hesitation in his voice, the guarded look in his eyes, and each time they parted, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had been left unsaid. Lily continued his work in silence, weaving his web with patience. He never pushed too hard, never made direct accusations, only subtle observations, whispered with just the right tone to make them linger. "Nano seems distant these days, doesn't he?" He would muse, his words light but deliberate. "Maybe he's found someone he trusts more." And to Nano he would say, "Wasee is changing. You notice it, don't you? He isn't as open with you anymore. Maybe he has his own reasons." Neither Wasee nor Nano confronted each other. Instead, they let the silence stretch between them, each trapped in his own doubts. Then came the first real fracture. It was a simple misunderstanding, something that should have been cleared with a conversation. A promise to meet, one that Nano had forgotten and Wasee had taken as a deliberate slight. Wasee waited for hours, a storm of emotions brewing inside him. When he finally saw Nano the next day, the words left his mouth before he could stop them. "You could have at least told me if you didn't want to come." Nano bristled. "I forgot. It wasn't intentional." Wasee scoffed. "Yeah, seems to be happening a lot lately." Nano stared at him, something cold flashing in his eyes. "Maybe because I have other things to do, Wasee. Not everything revolves around you." The air between them grew heavy, thick with words left unsaid. Neither backed down. Neither apologized. And just like that, the first true crack appeared. Lily's work was nearly done. The tide had fully turned, and soon, it would pull them apart completely. The distance between Wasee and Nano had grown into a chasm, wide and unbridgeable. Their words were fewer, their meetings rarer. What had once been effortless now felt strained, like a conversation neither of them wanted to have but were too proud to abandon entirely. Lily watched in silence, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. His work had been delicate, precise. No outright lies, just whispers, just doubts, just enough poison to turn two brothers into strangers. And now, he only needed a spark to turn that smoldering resentment into fire. The opportunity came one evening when Wasee overheard something that shattered whatever trust remained. "You know, Nano's been telling people you've changed," a mutual friend mentioned offhandedly. "That you're not the person he thought you were." The words cut deep, confirming every suspicion Lily had planted. Rage simmered beneath Wazee's skin. He had held back for weeks, excusing Nano's distance, dismissing his coldness, but this was betrayal. He found Nano that night, standing near their old meeting spot, lost in thought. Wasee approached without hesitation. "Is this what we've come to now?" Wazee's voice was sharp, edged with the weight of unspoken grievances. Talking behind each other's backs instead of facing the truth? Nano turned, caught off guard. "What are you talking about? Don't act like you don't know," Wasee snapped. "You've been telling people I've changed, that I'm not the same friend you once had." Nano's expression darkened. "And what about you? You've been listening to Lily, haven't you? Letting him fill your head with doubts." "Lily?" Wasee let out a bitter laugh. "You think this is about him? This is about you, Nano. You let this friendship die. You let the lies in. And now you're standing here pretending like you're the victim." Nano's hands clenched into fists. "Maybe I stopped trusting you because you stopped being someone I could trust." The words hung in the air like an irreversible mistake. For the first time in their lives, there was no way forward. No laughter to break the tension. No shared memory to bring them back. Just silence. Just the knowledge that whatever they had, whatever they were, had shattered beyond repair. Lily had won. As Wasee turned away, his heart heavy with anger and hurt, he realized something painful. Betrayal doesn't always come in grand, dramatic gestures. Sometimes it's in the small things, the hesitations, the silences, the unspoken doubts that take root until one day, you wake up and realize you no longer know the person standing before you. And worse, you no longer know yourself. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between Wasee and Nano became permanent. What had once been a friendship built on trust and loyalty was now nothing more than a distant memory, buried beneath resentment and misunderstandings. The wounds were too deep, the words spoken too sharp to take back. But the truth, as it always does, found its way to the surface. It came unexpectedly, through a conversation overheard in passing. Wasee had been walking through the marketplace when he caught fragments of a hushed discussion between two acquaintances. Lily always had a way of turning people against each other. One of them muttered, "It's what he does." He whispers just enough to make them doubt, then watches as they tear themselves apart. A slow, sinking realization settled over Wasee. Lily. The memories came rushing back. The carefully placed words, the subtle manipulations, the way he had planted seeds of distrust between them without ever outright lying. It had never been about Wasee or Nano changing. It had always been about Lily's game. A heavy weight settled in his chest. Nano needed to know. He found Nano that evening, standing alone beneath the flickering streetlight near their old meeting place. For a brief moment, it was as if nothing had changed, as if time could rewind, and they could be those same carefree boys again. But reality was different now. "We were played," Wasee said, his voice quieter than he had expected. "Lily turned us against each other, and we let him." Nano didn't respond immediately. He simply stared, as if trying to decide whether to believe him. Then, slowly, the anger in his eyes softened into something heavier. Regret. "I should have known," Nano admitted. "I let him poison what we had." There were no grand apologies, no dramatic reconciliations. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal overnight. But as they stood there in the dim light, the silence between them wasn't the same as before. It wasn't heavy with anger. It was filled with understanding. Perhaps they would never be the same again. Perhaps some friendships, once broken, could never be fully repaired. But at least now they knew the truth. And sometimes knowing the truth is the first step toward finding peace.